Everyone here. Thank you for being with us. My name is Courtney Battle, and I am the Executive Director of Housing and so pleased to be joining you this morning alongside our partners at Arlington County and the Digital Equity Initiative as we celebrate both Digital Inclusion Week and Affordable Housing Month. At Housing our mission is grounded in the belief that housing is more than just four walls, it's a platform for opportunity. And in today's world, that opportunity is deeply tied to digital connection. Access to affordable, reliable internet and the skills to use it are no longer nice to haves. They're fundamental to participating fully in our communities, whether you're applying for a job, attending school, connecting with healthcare, or engaging with neighbors and local government. Today's conversation sits right at that intersection where home meets homepage. And we'll hear first from affordable housing developers who are integrating connectivity into the very fabric of their projects, tackling the last mile in ways that make digital access a core part of what it means to build equitable communities. Then we'll turn to service providers and partners who are helping residents not just get online, but really thrive online in building digital literacy, confidence, and tools that turn access into empowerment. I want to extend a huge thank you to our incredible lineup of speakers who bring both vision and practical experience to this work, and to my co-moderator, Jennifer Sko, whose leadership through the Arlington County Digital Equity Initiative has been instrumental in moving this work forward. And finally, thank you to all of you who are joining us, whether you're a housing provider, an educator, public servant, or advocate. The fact that you're here this morning really signals your commitment to ensuring every household, regardless of income, age, or zip code, has the opportunity to be fully connected. So with that, I'll hand things over to Jennifer to help us set the stage before our first panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for that introduction. I'm just going to share my screen real fast. I have a quick presentation to offer. Okay, well, I am Jennifer Sko, and I'm managing the Digital Equity Initiative in Arlington County. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we've been up to, just to set the context for this event before we kickstart with our panel discussion. So the initiative and my work here in Arlington is largely a result of a recent broadband study that helped us better understand our resources and various implementation considerations. And the reports that came out of this study, they've been an educational tool for us and has helped us in our strategic focus and in our policymaking. So a little bit of what we learned regarding our infrastructure, we assessed our coverage with property level data that was really new, just was put out right when we launched this study. And it came from the FCC. So we looked at two different federal benchmarks, 100 megabits per second down, 20 megabits per second up, which is their definition for being adequately served at a property. And then we also looked at 100 megabits per second down, 100 megabits per second up, because we wanted to be forward thinking. And that is another federal benchmark for new construction projects under one federal grant program. So one important thing that happened between the time we first looked at this data and as we kind of proceeded with our study was that Comcast had made significant upgrades to their infrastructure. And so what's shown on the right is the pre-Comcast upgrade, and then some of the information on the left is post-Comcast upgrade that we then incorporated into our model evaluation and other components of the evaluation. So the map that you see, the map on the right, 100 megabits per second down, 20 up, that's kind of what 100 looks like today about. So we have virtually ubiquitous access in the county. Most properties have at least two providers present. And of the locations without competition, it amounts to about 5,000 units. At the time of our needs assessment, about 6% of households, even though we have virtual ubiquitous access, about 6% didn't have internet subscriptions, and mostly low income people of color, older adults, they're actually 2 to 3 times more likely not to subscribe or have a device. But another component that we wanted to look at was broadband affordability, which is actually kind of challenging to study because it has a lot of different fees. There's different pricing structures at play. And most importantly, there's actually no national standard or benchmark that guides us as it does like we have in housing. And that's just been a challenge to define the need and to build a strategy around that. So we tried to do it with this study, probably could use more nuanced assessment, but we did our best with what we had. A couple of organizations, they're looking at this. Some say one, you shouldn't spend more than 1% of your income towards internet bill. Some say 2%. So we took 1.5%, the average, and compared that to our household incomes. And so when you start to experience internet cost burden is about 50% of the area median income or below, depending upon your household size. I think that this number, the 21,000 that you see, which is about a fifth of our households, it kind of overstates the need a little bit. We wanted to be conservative though in our approach, but I would say it overstates it because several households also live in affordable housing properties that provide free in-unit Wi-Fi. But these are the numbers that we use to kind of do our various model evaluation. So moving on to our lessons learned, we have a lot of recommendations in the study. And instead of going through all of them, I just thought I would give a quick snapshot of kind of our core lessons learned and how the process has really shaped us today. So I think first and foremost, a big lesson was that we as a county have pretty limited tools when it comes to regulating broadband and controlling for minimum speeds, controlling for competition. And in Virginia specifically, we legally can't provide internet service directly to others, other than we can provide it to ourselves. So our competitive environment, it kind of makes things tricky. It makes things tricky when we're trying to attract new internet providers who need certain return on investments. It's also tricky if we're trying to set up our own wireless service authority, which we can do, but there's a lot of risk with that. In terms of legal risks, there's property access issues that we would also have to deal with, and also huge upfront costs that just isn't sustainable. Subsidizing households directly is an option. And so we looked at that, and it does reduce cost burden, obviously, when you're subsidizing someone's internet bill. But the cost to do it is rather substantial, to the tune of millions of dollars every year. And that's more or less severe, kind of depending on the tier that you want to, the speed tier that you want to subsidize or the scale that you're trying to subsidize. And in addition, we actually have two pathways to internet support. So one is actually a direct subsidy that the Arlington Public Schools have, which provides some connectivity enhancements and also pays for internet for any household that has a public school student who is in need. And so the second pathway is an indirect pathway through our affordable housing providers. We've used our local housing fund to support projects that have included either free in-unit Wi-Fi or a subsidy component to their deal. And at the time of the study, we also had several more that were baked into that 21,000 that would have qualified for a federal subsidy under the Affordable Connectivity Program. But unfortunately, last year, that program was discontinued. Um, Something we learned though, one affordable housing property owner that we talked to, as a matter of practice, they offer free in-unit internet in all new properties. And they mentioned that roughly 50% of their residents who have access to it actually subscribe to it. So there is an education component that's needed to see the value in it and also to make meaningful use of it above any subsidy program. So speaking to education, this pillar of digital equity, I think, is the most pervasive, especially with how rapid technology changes and the need to keep it up. From basic computing, learning about AI, all the way to evening the playing field with tech certifications that advance workforce development goals. Um, and then lastly, another major strategy of this study is that we should promote more intentional governance. So we, as a county, I think before the broadband study and during it, we were doing kind of a lot in this space, but we were all sort of doing this separately. And we were missing an opportunity to collaborate and to cohesively move forward toward a common vision and goal. So last year, we amped up our resources from both a funding standpoint and a staffing standpoint. And we launched this digital equity initiative to provide strategic planning and coordination to this body of work. It is funded with proceeds from a real estate transaction with JBG Smith, a developer in the area. And with all of the major investments that they've been making in the National Landing, they were really interested in securing conduit and fiber from our Connect Arlington system, which is our middle mile fiber network. In exchange for them to access this for 99 years, they agreed to pay us $2.7 million upfront for that asset. And so that is what is funding and fueling the Digital Equity Initiative over the next several years. So in this first year, I am focusing my time on these three goals, on establishing ourselves, on pursuing external resources to see if we can extend that 2.7 million, and expanding programming. So we've already achieved several things that are listed on this slide, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to highlight two things. One is that we launched a digital equity coalition that brings a diverse group of practitioners together. They're made up of internet providers, technology professionals, community-based partners, advocates, county staff, school staff. And the vision is that this group is a meeting place to support and learn from each other. It's to foster new ideas and partnerships, advocate, and inform strategy. So we've only met a few times, but already I've witnessed more connections to resources, new relationships that have formed, and our last meeting had nearly 50 people. So there's a lot of energy around this topic, and I think so far we've generally seen that this is a value add. The second major thing that I wanted to share is that we issued our first digital equity focused notice of funding. And that was released in April, and we just selected our grantees. So we wanted this first round to be targeted. And so given that, from an infrastructure standpoint, we're pretty good, affordability is still obviously a key concern. But since we have kind of our pathways in place that I mentioned, we thought that we would focus it on digital navigation, sort of one-on-one tech support, as well as digital skills training. And that by focusing on this, it would help us learn more about how to move forward and set a nice foundation from which we could possibly grow. The process was rather competitive. It generated more than 5 times the funding requests that we had available, and we got about a dozen or 2 dozen applicants. So ultimately selected 7 of them, and we granted $500,000 in total. And I think with this inaugural cohort, we're realizing a lot of the recommendations that were in the broadband study. But also, I think what stood out to us among this group was that they limited duplication of efforts between themselves, but also with county services. And also, it provides kind of a value add to the organization to do more. Most of them, I think, provide a nice holistic approach to digital skill building. So more than just learning computer skills alone, they're kind of elevating impact beyond just digital skills. And then I think all of them have solid projects. They just proposed really good projects that and have really good organizations behind them that we felt confident they could execute what they said. So you'll hear from some of them later in this presentation. And between them, I think most importantly, over 1,600 residents are going to be supported by the investment. So as we move forward, this is really going to help shape the initiative over the next year or two, I think, as we learn, as they get going and we kind of see more on the ground. And it's going to help us continue to refine our strategy. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and welcome back Courtney, who's going to help me co-moderate the panel discussion. And I'm also going to welcome to the stage Melanie Fike and Marquand Jackson, who are our 2 developers on this panel. So this panel discussion, the idea behind it was we just wanted to spotlight these 2 developers who have been, they're rock stars in our area. We work a lot with them, and they've been doing a lot. And so I think they have a lot of solutions to share, a lot of lessons learned to also share. And I think we can learn a lot from them. So with that, I'll hand the mic back to Courtney. who's going to ask the first question.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome, Melanie and Marquand. Good morning to you. So just to start us off, could each of you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves and your organizations, the work that you're doing, and how your organization views digital equity and how that perspective really connects to your broader housing work.
I guess I'll unmute faster. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm Melanie Fike. I'm Program Manager of Special Projects in the Resident Services Department at Affordable Homes and Communities, also known as AHC. We're a nonprofit affordable housing developer with comprehensive resident services, serving individuals and families across the region with over 55 properties in total, and then 23 in Arlington specifically. In my role in resident services, I lead our digital equity initiatives, which really intersects with all four of our cornerstones, which are health and wellness, economic mobility, community engagement, and education. And this is because internet accessibility and digital equity crosses these lines as well. I collaborate with our development team and asset management teams also around digital equity initiatives in the broader scope of our housing. At AHC, we really see digital equity as essential infrastructure to go hand in hand with the housing that we provide. And again, this is because that without reliable, affordable internet access and the skills to navigate the digital world, our residents are locked out of opportunity. And to us, digital equity means that every resident, no matter their age, income, or background, has the tools to fully participate in modern life, whether that's completing homework, accessing telehealth, or applying to jobs online. All of these moments really hinge on access. So in our affordable housing work, digital access isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's why we integrate digital equity into how we design services, partner with providers, build homes, and advocate for policy. And equitable housing must include equitable access to the digital world. Thanks.
Absolutely. Marquand?
Well, Melanie took it all. I don't have to say anything. Marquand Jackson, Vice President of Resident Services at True Ground Housing, formerly known as APA, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. We have a portfolio of 23 properties, and 19 of them are in Arlington. So we have over 5,000 individuals that call a True Ground property home. In my role at True Ground, I oversee our resident services program. We have a staff of 23 supporting across our portfolio, and our work, as Melanie said, it really speaks to, we see digital equity as a must. And so I work alongside my colleagues in the real estate shop to make sure that it's now the standard that all of our buildings will have free Wi-Fi and access. And we also have a few different programs. We have a program where folks can, in the education space, they can receive a Chromebook. We have some Chromebooks that folks can use for employment, so people can lease laptops from us. We have some of our properties where folks can be reimbursed for their internet access, and then some of our newer properties we just go forward and install so they have access upon move-in. We recognize that without Wi-Fi, it really limits folks' access and has an impact on job search. It reduces their access to healthcare. We all know that now our medical portals are on at the tip of your phone. We're trying to eliminate some education barriers and make sure that we also find with our resident council, because we try to have one individual from each portfolio, having access to Wi-Fi really allows them to be civically engaged, and so they don't even the folks who are not in our Arlington portfolio can still engage in the resident council via Zoom or Teams. And so we recognize that having access, it's more than just having the Wi-Fi, but also knowing how to navigate that. So we are always partnering with some of my colleagues who you'll hear from later in the session to provide digital literacy and computer classes and all sorts of things on site, so we can eliminate that barrier as well. Thank you.
All right. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you for the next question.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to ask just a question around kind of looping it to implementing connectivity and some of the strategies and the challenges that you face with that. So if you could just share some of the strategies that your organization has used or is planning to use to ensure that internet access is at your properties. And I guess, how about Marquand first, since Melanie went first last time?
Yeah, so some of the things that we do currently is, as I said, we now in the last 3 years, we've now started to um, consider Wi-Fi at the front end versus coming back at the second end. And so we talk about the capital upfront cost, and which is about 100 to 200,000 per building. So and that is for electric room, distribution of plant, wires, panels, and equipment, and then the operating cost is about 30,000 a year. But we bake that into our operating cost, and so. That's one of the things we've most recently started to do is just it's a standard. So let's just as we think about doors and windows, let's think about Wi-Fi. In some of our other buildings, we have different programs where there was a Queens Court, which is opened in 2021. There was a cost, there was a savings, and what we did, we were able to put that in reserves, and so residents just had to show their monthly bill, and they receive a credit of $25 towards their Wi-Fi. And we that really allowed us to let people have autonomy in who they choose. And then we've had some not so successful program launches of digital equity where we had Arlington Mill, where we had one provider. But what we recognize is going one provider doesn't really lend itself to everyone having access. So, for example, if we go with Comcast and a resident has an outstanding bill with Comcast, then they're not able to participate in the program. And we have signed an agreement with Comcast. So now we have um, versus screening someone in, we've screened someone out by having one exclusive provider. And so we learned that lesson. And so just as folks should have autonomy in all things, we recognize that while it may be advantageous for us to have one provider, it sometimes creates barriers for others might have different experiences with different providers.
Yeah, thank you for that. Melanie?
Yes, our strategies have really evolved over time, starting in the late 80s and early 90s, as legend has it, that actually one of our first resident services projects was having a computer space where residents could access internet, and when it wasn't ubiquitous to have it in the homes. So it kind of started off with that, and also, evolving throughout the years. And then with COVID, really expanding our outreach when we were thrust into a world where we knew that instantaneously people were expected to have access in their homes, and we realized they did not. So we needed to work with the ACP, rest in peace for that program, for the Affordable Connectivity Program. We supported residents with that, families getting devices, making sure everything was working so they could access their lives, including social networks, jobs, schools, etc. So with that, we are, with all that said, we're still in the early stages of having a comprehensive modern digital access strategy and working hard to get there and excited for the initiative. One key point to that, we've established a digital on-site connectivity assessment where we had a digital equity intern and myself and other team members that provided a scope of reach for all of our properties and what was needed there in terms of our digital access. We're also surveying for it in all of our resident surveys. We are asking questions, getting curious about internet accessibility, affordability pieces within the house to work within this. We do have in our new developments, we have Wi-Fi in common areas, and all of our current projects in the pipeline have free internet that will be in the units themselves. A specific initiative we have worked with was with philanthropic funding in partnership with Capital One. So we had a relationship with them along the finance side of the work that we do in building and developing our homes, and then segued into working with them on the philanthropic side, where they were able to provide free cost internet for all of our residents at 2 of our Alexandria City properties. And then at one of those properties, we provided a device to all of those to those residents as well. And we got really positive feedback. It went really well, having teams to support the process with that. We had a lot of lessons learned that we really wanted to rely on partners. Our resident engagement specialists, our on-site team members aren't tech gurus necessarily. So having to provide support in terms of training the trainers for them and working with other partners to provide supports. A local policy that's also influenced our work is in Montgomery County when we worked with their MocoNet initiative. So MocoNet in Montgomery County provides high-speed free internet to the residents in affordable housing communities, and we're fortunate to have it in our properties there. And it's been a really great example of how local government can lead on digital equity. And I understand Jennifer alluded to the fact that there are different structures in place, Maryland having different laws around these things, but we have seen it as a great example of how our residents have benefited from this. So really our goal is to integrate digital access into our housing development and rehab process, just like we do with energy efficiency or accessibility. Thanks.
Great, thank you for that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, thank you, Melanie. Would just interject, there's a question in the chat. Marquand Raven asked if you could just walk through the $25 discount for broadband again, if that's being provided to all of the residents at True Ground.
Sure. So that is not being provided at all of our sites, but at that particular site, that was one thing we tried, right? So, and the interesting thing is residents haven't taken us up on it. So you would think that showing proof of the utility would be enough to receive the $25, but for whatever reasons, residents are not taking us up on it. We have, and we push it. We have now less than 25% of our building taking advantage of that monthly credit, and so it's only at one particular property. And how that works is you show the proof of Wi-Fi connected in the leaseholder's name, and we will credit your account $25 each month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And actually, it's a really good segue. I wanted to just see if you guys could both touch on some of the challenges that you've experienced with regards to some of the projects that you just mentioned. Marquand, I don't know if you have anything to expand on, but if not, then maybe Melanie can share.
Yeah, I can share. So our efforts with Capital One, I alluded to the fact that some of the expectations around device distribution and setting residents up for the internet required our team members to, do the device distribution, these types of things. So we just had a learning curve in terms of those logistical processes and, getting our team members up and ready to provide the training to residents. And it helped us realize that we needed more support around that tech piece. We can't be masters in everything, and we're not, masters in kind of tech coaching. So we realized that we needed to get other support with that. I think the digital on-site connectivity assessment, which I mentioned, there is the just capacity issues, I would say, around that was a challenge, just to make sure, just to kind of have everyone on that have the ability and capacity to kind of go into our site and make sure that things are on the right page for everything. So that was a slight challenge within the work that we're doing. And then in terms of surveys and getting feedback, survey fatigue is always a challenge when we're asking residents information about their systems at play, and just knowing there are such differences depending on the community that we're in. So again, with Arlington specifically, we have 23 properties, and they all have their unique set of needs just by way of the demographics of the building and also the buildings themselves. So there's just a lot of differences with that provides, just more to think about, I would say.
Thank you. So what about differences between new construction buildings and renovations or existing buildings? Any differences that you see and any challenges with either? Marquand?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, if we go back to when where we first started, like I said, if Comcast or another provider dropped the lines in the building, then they own the wires, right? And so that creates its own barrier. That limits how we can engage new products like Starry or different new providers. And so in older buildings where we don't own the wire, so that's why we now going forward, we make sure we put the capital upfront cost so that we can own the wiring and the panels and the equipment throughout the building so that we're not having that conversation. But lessons learned, right? That's more recent. Um, and I think, because we can do the capital upfront costs, it really allows us to think about how we operate, what we need to operate the building. And as I said, it's about 30,000 for the whole building. And so we pay it out of income cost, we pay it out of the operating cost for income. And really it's part of it is a part of the rent, but it's not created. And we'll talk about this later. It's not a utility allowance. And so it's easier to do it up front. Going back to our older buildings, we have older buildings that need to be renovated, quite honestly. So if they're on the if they're in the pipeline to be renovated, we're less likely to put the 300,000 up front to do so, and we know we're going to be demoing in the next 2 years, and so that creates its own barrier as we're trying to reimagine some of our own properties and we're not trying to raise rent. Where do you pull that $200,000 to $300,000 out of a property that's barely cash flowing to make internet happen? And so that creates its own barrier because we don't want to raise rents to meet the moment for the 300,000, for 100 units. To raise that cost has to go somewhere. And so I think, going forward, we won't have a barrier because we're thinking about it, but trying to go back and solve for something and not trying to raise rents and being cognizant that, just for context, over 45% of our residents pay more than 40% of their income in rent. So our families are stretched, right? And so we can provide, if digital equity is going to stretch them to 2 more hours of work to meet the cost, the uptick in rent, and we're also going to have to raise rent 5%. We don't want to do that. So I think we have to think about how can we create more subsidy programs to reimagine so the cost is not being passed on to residents.
Right. Anything to add, Melanie? And that's fine if not.
Marquand covered it very
all.
well. Yes.
Good. Well, I did want to have one last question. You kind of started to mention a little bit with regard to the subsidy program that you have with the $25 discount at the properties. But I just wanted to get an understanding of, from your perspective, is it better? I know with regard to utility payments and affordable housing, sometimes residents are on the hook for it, sometimes they're not. Same thing with the internet. Sometimes it's included and sometimes it's not. Residents have to go and set it up. What is better? Is it better for landlords to pay or for tenants to pay? Which model is better? What are the pros and cons of either? And either one of you guys, feel free to chime in.
I believe that the benefit, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything that you want to do. I think in general, our residents give feedback, and that they want choice. They want to make their own decisions about like their providers. They want to make sure, choose the internet plan that works well for them. So I think there's a lot of benefit to residents being empowered to know the options, have choice, have the ability to find a system that works for them, depending on who's in their household, all of these types of things. That said, having a landlord provide these services directly, having them provide internet directly, generally what that means, as I understand it, is that there are it's all set up for them, which is a benefit to residents in a lot of ways. And it would kind of be a one size fits all approach to the process. And then, of course, on our end, as a developer and owner, that cost can, be prohibitive from that on our side for sure.
Anything to add, Marquand?
So I think the interesting thing is that tenants are responsible for paying most utilities, electric, gas, and water, but they have a utility allowance, and for some of those for those utilities. However, Wi-Fi is the exception. And it's the exception because Virginia Housing provides a lot of incentives for developers to provide free Wi-Fi in their QAP. And so it almost is impossible to win tax credits without doing this. So we do it in the common areas because we take the points. But I think if we are giving them subsidies for water, electric, and everything else, there should be a subsidy for Wi-Fi as well. Like 'cause I would argue it's just as it's a necessity, just as water and electricity. And so I think we should allow people to have choice, but I do think that there should be some type of subsidy applied across all affordable housing developments because, like I said, without Wi-Fi, it limits the social capital and the economic mobility for our families. And so I think we underestimate uh, how necessary it is. Like I said, we have 2,500 units, so our newsletter goes out virtually, right? Because we're not going door to door, right? And so we have a food pantry, and so we're able to email in real time. Hey, we got fresh vegetables in. We got 3,000 pounds of kale in. Like it's we are able to meet the moment by having access and being able to. We just as we have Wi-Fi, we have a mass texting platform that we use. So we are so locked in to everything being digital that I think by not having some type of fix where we can make sure while it's easy for us that they have access, I think is a disservice to our residents.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think you start to talk about my next question, which kind of gets at a little bit of policy. You'd mentioned how state financing treats internet. It's not considered a utility. Um, and it makes things difficult to weave it into the deal because of that. We have to look at other solutions. And so I kind of wanted to see if there was any other kind of policies at play that, like that's kind of hindering or supporting your efforts. You kind of talked about some of the incentives that at the state level that's kind of guiding to make sure that you guys are weaving things in to make sure you're getting the financing credits and win these competitive credits. Anything else that you want to mention that is kind of from a positive standpoint or something that's hurting you guys that you just wanted to share?
I would, echo that the absence of having this as having digital access to internet as an add-on rather than essential infrastructure makes the biggest need for resources to offset the cost of internet for affordable housing, either through government or broadband and tech contributions as it comes up. And then I would say that local policy could play a huge role in shifting this landscape. So providing funding or matching grants being the big one. So even modest local funding could really help offset the cost of Wi-Fi in common areas, staffing for digital literacy programs, and pilots for bulk service models. Having facilitation of public and private partnerships could be something that would enhance the process. Having local government play a convening role. It's starting to happen in Arlington, bringing people together, housing providers, ISPs, internet service providers, and digital equity coalitions to co-design scalable, affordable access solutions. And then, incentivizing the broadband infrastructure to sum up, being a key component.
Thank you. Mark-Juan, anything else to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Melanie really hit all the, key talking points. But I think, one of the things I think is about is how could the county help provide infrastructure, right? And so when we think about our properties that may not have it baked in the deal, what would it look like if the county had, provided fiber in those spaces, or helped us think about how to offset the costs so that our older developments were able to have just as much access. I think that is I think this might be potentially cheaper to install and operate than providing like providers like Comcast, right? So how can we reimagine the county's role in kind of helping us go back and solve for the units that may not be up for redevelopment or not have Wi-Fi not have internet access currently.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's something that we definitely looked at and investigated through our broadband study that I had mentioned. It's tricky, I think, providing the fiber kind of ourselves. There's a lot of, I guess, complicated components to that. But it's definitely worth continuing the conversation, especially for those existing properties where you're not getting that infusion of capital to be able to bake stuff into the deal. So thank you for raising that. Anything else? Before we kind of move on and let Courtney ask the last question, just wanted to ask if there's anything else that, Arlington or other local governments can do um, to kind of facilitate your work and to promote and provide an easier landscape for you.
I think having some clear standards around what digital ready households housing is could be helpful. So, I want to be careful to say, not mandates at this point, but expectations, best practices, having just more literature around this and more guidance around this could be a helpful point to move towards.
Yeah, thank you. Any last comments, Marquand? All right. Well, I'm gonna hand the mic over to Courtney so she can ask the last question and close us out.
Thanks, Jennifer. So last question before we turn it over to the audience for any questions. Want to loop back to something that was mentioned earlier in the conversation just about access not being enough on its own. And so want to just ask about how your organization is thinking about broader digital inclusion, digital literacy, and access to ensure residents can meaningfully use the internet. So if you can just say a bit more about how you're going a step beyond just access and supporting residents in that work.
Sure. So most of our buildings have business centers. So if you don't have access in your space, you could always access the business center. But it's the small things, right? I mean, how many of us have printers, right? Like, and so we in those business centers, we have now made it so folks can print out things and kids can use that for work and all those things. And so that's one less thing, right? And the units are already tight. And so having access to printers is one way that we have thought about it. Having access to business centers, we have on-site computer classes with some, as I said, with some providers that you'll hear from later. So we have a program that teaches seniors how to engage with technology. We launched a grandpad program. So those are tablets that are designed to function for seniors, and so they have movies on them. They can FaceTime with their loved ones, and so we recognize that a lot of our seniors social isolation is a barrier, and so
Yeah.
the grandpads, although they're expensive, it's money well spent to us. And we also we've partnered with Raspberry Pi and Best Buy Foundation to teach kids coding on site. We have received a grant through Arlington County to continue that work. We find that our teenagers, our youth in particular, are very interested in how technology works and understanding their footprint on the web is really important. And so we're launching a few programs where they'll be building drones and engaging with technology in different ways. And so we're always thinking about how to and thinking about how to be civically engaged with technology is part of the work we're going to do with the grant, because I think we don't want our youth to make a misstep that could cost them an opportunity. And so I think by having resources where we can show them how to do things beyond social media platforms is really important, and to think of and to think for our residents who maybe are looking for jobs that are remote. And so we have some work that we do in our workforce readiness program to think about that. So we're always thinking about how to engage and have a healthy relationship with technology across our portfolio.
I love that. Melanie, anything that you have to add there?
Yes, I think that you probably have gathered from this conversation, everyone, that I do not come from a tech background. I don't come from a developer background. I'm a social worker, and I'm really invested in providing equitable services for populations, specifically vulnerable populations. And that's what AHC's Resident Services really does. And with that, we're on the ground engaging with residents, figuring out what makes sense for them. And we've really heard loud and clear that it's not just about getting online, it's about staying connected and feeling confident and using technology and having support when things don't work, and really having this infused in all of the things we do. I mean, you can't have housing stability if you can't make your rent payments online. You can't have help, you can't be healthy and well if you can't access your doctor in a portal these days. You can't, be economically mobile if you can't apply for a job that has a virtual job interview. So having residents feel confident in all these things is really an important part of what we're doing. And to meet that need, we're really, partnering with organizations and providing that expertise in digital literacy, providing device distribution and navigation support in what we're doing. So we're embedded in the community, and that's where our strength lies in how we're supporting our residents. So looking ahead, we really want to formalize and scale that work and make sure that it is equitable amongst our properties. And a lot of times we've been historically reactive when there has been an opportunity to partner there, but wanting to move toward being proactive, figuring out the need, and then kind of reaching that component from there. So our goal is really not just to connect residents to the internet, but offer that support, independence, and community in the digital space. And we're committed to building the partnerships and otherwise making that happen.
Yeah, thank you. I think you brought up some really good points, and the bottom line is housing and digital access go hand in hand. And I love what you said, Marquand, about just building a healthy relationship with the internet, going a step beyond social media. And so, want to thank you both again for your participation this morning. Would open it up to the audience. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I did have one question. If we could provide both of your contact information to the group, or are you comfortable with that? Okay, so we will definitely provide. Yeah. We'll provide those emails to the group, and please, if there are any other questions from the audience, feel free to drop those into the chat before we move to the next section of our agenda.
Marquand, we really covered it. We really got it.
Alrighty, so if there are no questions, and if there are some that come up as we move through the rest of the program, please feel free to drop those into the chat, and we'll make sure we address those. But thank you again, Marquand and Melanie, and Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Courtney. So as we move to the next phase of this event, this is kind of a lightning round presentation from several technology service providers. And really what this is to just spotlight all the good work that they are doing. Many of them are in Arlington. They work in Arlington. Some of them are digital equity grantees, but not all of them are. But the unique tie with them is they're all members of our Digital Equity Coalition, and they've been part of that group since the beginning. So with that, I wanted to welcome Donna James, who's from Computer Core, to give her presentation.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer, for having me, and everybody else who's here today. Thanks, Tiana, for sharing this slide. So I am the Executive Director of Computer Core, and we are a 26-year-old nonprofit that's been serving Northern Virginia since 1999. And we have always served Arlington residents as part of what we're doing. We're very pleased to be a member of the Digital Equity Coalition, and also to be one of the grant recipients through the recent grant. process. So we really appreciate that, and we're ready to go and to provide the services that we provide. I'll discuss those to Arlington residents, and particularly to residents of affordable housing. So it's very appropriate for us to be here today. We've served nearly 8,000 people over our 26 years, most of them more recently because since COVID, we've been teaching online, which really allows us to have a much broader reach. We also, through the new initiative, which we're calling Core Path Arlington, is putting digital navigators in place in places like affordable housing, also libraries, community centers, other nonprofits, so that there is a live person that people can come to. And this conversation's been so interesting because it does seem like adopting the digital resources is part of what makes things really, really work. Getting people comfortable, having digital navigators are really trusted members of the community who perhaps share a culture, language, residence with the other people they're trying to help. So hopefully that can break down some of those barriers. You can go to the next slide. So we are really committed to digital equity and inclusion. I put some examples here of like what we mean about that. Our mission is really to close the digital divide. We all know there is a divide. When we wake up every day and we think about what our work is, we think how to make sure that the differences between people who use internet, who use devices, who are really comfortable with that, and the people who have been left out of technology, how do we minimize that gap? How do we get everybody up and running as quickly as possible? So one thing we don't do is kind of wait for people until people are ready. When we talk to kind of our higher level technology people, sometimes they're surprised that we give away computers. We give computers away to keep. They're refurbished computers. We go ahead and teach virtual skills. We don't we teach all kinds of digital skills without sort of waiting for people to be ready. We do need to start at a very basic level for some people. Um, I didn't say, but our audience is really adults, 18 and over. So we're working with people who maybe are really embarrassed to say they don't have digital skills because their kids are probably pretty good. And we try to just make an even playing field, begin where people are at, but also as quickly as possible, teach them about virtual platforms, go ahead and teach about artificial intelligence. Internet security was just discussed. Definitely teach about that, but help people feel comfortable. Next slide. So the program that I just referenced, again, funded by Arlington, thank you. We will be placing at least 8 digital navigators around Arlington, and they will be, I kind of discussed this, one of the things they'll be doing is teaching almost one-on-one, like a tech clinic. You can see that picture there of us working with a couple, myself and a volunteer, working almost one-on-one with people at a laptop so that they can, we can see them touch the keys, we can see what they have, we can connect them to online resources, including our own classes, and also internet, helping them find out maybe, I love that concept you were talking about. There's a $25 subsidy, maybe we can get them to request that. Um, and we do hope to, or we plan on serving 500 new adult learners in Arlington beginning this month and going through, a full year, and providing 500 computers. Again, they're refurbished, but they are available for people to keep. So hopefully we can supplement some of your efforts. And we will be doing some digital navigator training. So this will be both for some people who will be hired, but also for people who, you mentioned a couple times, resident services staff, other folks, library staff, people who want to do the digital navigator training. We'll be doing that. Some of them will be hired, especially people from the community who could really use the wages, but also all of us really need to be digital navigators. Next slide. Thank you. And then we have a special aspect of this program. As you can imagine, when we cast a wide net, we take everybody 18 and over. Basically, you just have to live in this case, in Arlington, but also we have our clients and beneficiaries come from all over Virginia, also DC and Maryland. Among a really big net like that, you're going to catch people who don't really have any digital skills, as I've said, and we're very prepared with very patient trainers to work with them. But we also have people who have a lot of digital skills. So examples would be people, we have a very large immigrant population, people who have a degree in their own country in mathematics or aspect of computer science. We also have people who grew up in this country, but they got their computer science degree over 20 years ago. So they need to start almost from zero. And we have people who just have more technical savvy and ability, just maybe they are a little younger or they just have really grasped the concepts they've been learning on their own. We also have returning citizens and also people going through like drug recovery who something else got them off track, but not a lack of technical skills. So for those folks, it's a smaller part of our group. We started the Courselerate program. This is through Arlington, but also very much in partnership with Microsoft. Our first iteration of this is ongoing right now, and we'll be doing more. And this is for those higher achievers. So if you think about who you have sort of in your circles, if you want to recommend people to our general program, or if you have people to recommend to this Courselerate program, it's both online and some in-person opportunities at Microsoft. And we're not teaching all the certification programs, but we are guiding people, offering a lot of peer support and mentoring, pointing out where the free services are, and hoping to get as many people as possible through a certification program. One more slide, thank you. So my ask for all of you is please let me know if you would like to be a host site for a digital navigator. The way it works out, each digital navigator has a lot of hours, so I think we can take, several host sites. We'll work with you to determine a good time for the navigator to be there. And this can be both to help your own staff as well as the residents themselves. Also, if you have digital navigator candidates to propose for training and or hiring. And this could be someone you're thinking of already as you're hearing me. You're thinking, oh yeah, there's that person. They don't have to be high tech. They have to be very patient, willing to help others. We can teach them some of the tech skills they might need. And recruit residents into the Courselerate program. Again, those people you're kind of thinking about right now who have a little higher level of skill. They're ready to get certified. Maybe they just don't have the right connections there. So that's it. Thank you for listening about Computer Core.
Thank you, Donna. All right, next up is Brian Moran from Boolean Girl.
Hi, I'm Brian Moran. I'm the co-founder and executive director of a 10-year-old nonprofit called Boolean Girl that operates here in Arlington. Next slide. So our mission is to improve diversity in STEM fields, specifically technology and engineering, where women and underrepresented segments of the population are just really underrepresented. Originally, we had focused on gender diversity, thus the name Boolean Girl, but we've since expanded that mission to reach really any underrepresented kids. Still strong focus on girls, but really, trying to pull in a lot of those low-income youth in grades 3 through 8. And our goal there is to move kids from users of technology to creators of technology. Next slide, please. And so we achieve our mission through a lot of direct in-person engagement with students, teaching them all sorts of technology, everything from basic coding to AI to robotics. We run summer camps, some of which are all girls, other that are focused on low-income communities like our program in Silver Spring, Maryland. We run after-school clubs, primarily at Title I schools. These clubs are teacher-led, so we hire and train teachers at the schools to run the clubs. On weekends, we run programs called Saturday Clubhouse, which are in the community. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Finally, we also donate STEM kits to schools. In Alexandria, every fifth grader gets a STEM kit from us. And then we train the teachers who use the kits as part of lessons that are integrated into their regular curriculum. So in Alexandria, and other places that we work with, it means kids are not being pulled out to do like coding or engineering. It's part of their regular classroom instruction. So, like, for example, in fifth grade, kids learn about electricity. In Alexandria, they use these kits that we provide to build and code a device that lets them test materials to see if the materials conduct electricity. So again, the idea is to integrate this into what they're already doing instead of having to pull them out for special programs just to integrate STEM. And the same thing is true in Fairfax, Montgomery County, and we're looking to expand into PG County. One of the cool features of our programs is that to execute these, in addition to hiring the teachers, we also hire high school students from local high school as instructors for our summer camps, our after-school clubs, our clubhouses, and these are paid positions for these students. And in a typical year, we'll reach about 10,000 students. Next slide, please. So in Arlington, one of our showcase programs is at Barcroft Housing Community, where we run a Saturday clubhouse using a digital equity grant from the county. This program was modeled after a program that we've been running in DC since 2018 at Brooklyn Manor Housing, which is up north of Union Station. It's a low-income housing community in DC. And, both of these programs, one of the important things is that we're coming to them, right? So this eliminates a lot of problems. And so students from this community attend for free. They learn how to code, they do engineering, and most importantly, they have fun doing it. It's grades 3 through 8. They get 14 weeks of instruction led by students from the local high school. Next slide, please. In our programs, underrepresented students receive this free coding and engineering classes. They build community, and they're inspired and build their confidence. And they get to work with these students from local high schools, who are role models and mentors. And I can't emphasize like the impact that has when high school students who frequently went to the same elementary school or middle school as these kids come into the room and are teaching the class and talking about what they're doing with tech in high school and what they're planning to do as they move on in college. It really has this, huge impact on the young kids. On the right, there's a bunch of statistics and stuff about, why this is important and the impact we have. But to me, the most important thing, or the thing that strikes me the most, is that by sixth grade, kids from middle income households spend 6,000 more hours in after school and summer learning programs than their low income peers. So that to me is like why we do this. Next slide, please. And then to wrap up, we're looking for partners to implement similar programs like this. We have some funding available. If there's other housing communities or somebody that wants to work with us to help target a low-income community, we are looking for other opportunities. And the last thing I'll say is if you really want to see us in action, you could come by Barcroft on a Saturday morning, or we run a program at Marymount University where it's really open to all students, not just students of the Barcroft community, and there's plenty of scholarships for that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Brian. Howard Solodky, you're up next.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Howard Solodky. I am a member of the board of directors of the Alliance for Arlington Senior Programs. Next slide, please. So, as you can see on the slide, we're a small 501c3 organization. We're an all-volunteer organization organized about 18 years ago to support the county's 55+ program, and we continue to do that by providing small grants to the 55+ program directly, or to various senior centers for senior center activities around Arlington County. But at the beginning of 2021, when COVID vaccinations became available, the way you had to sign up for a free shot here in Arlington was you had to go online to do it. And it occurred to us that there might be a number of people in the community, particularly low-income seniors, who did not have the ability to access the internet and sign up for shots. So we started our internet access for Arlington Seniors program. And the essence of the program is, we provide free laptop computers and free computer training to qualifying low-income seniors here in Arlington County. And we also try to make sure that the participants in the program, do have, Wi-Fi in their apartments. To date, I think we've brought our program, or we've had participants in our program to the tune of somewhere around 225 to 250 low-income seniors. The way the program works is that the key component of the program is we go to where the low-income seniors live. So we go to a variety of affordable housing communities in Arlington. Typically, we work with True Ground Housing and AHC, who we've heard from, and also Wesley Housing. And they tell us, what apartment building they want us to go to next to bring our program and provide participants or residents who want to participate in our program with a free laptop computer and free computer training classes. And so we typically conduct those classes in the community room of each of these apartment buildings, where there's usually Wi-Fi, so all the students can connect to the internet. There's usually a flat screen TV, so the teacher can put the screen of their computer up on the flat screen TV, so the students can see what the teacher's trying to convey. So the computer training classes are held twice a week. Each class is an hour and a half long, and the classes last for 6 weeks. So if you do the math, it's a total of 18 hours of instruction that each participating low-income senior gets on how to use their new laptop computer. Most of the participants in the program are ranked beginners. They have never used a computer before. They often don't have typing skills, but we managed through that, and we managed through that in a number of ways, including we tried to keep the classes small. So each class is typically maybe 6 to 8, maybe 10 seniors, because we recognize that the participating seniors need a lot of one-on-one attention. And we try to give that through a couple of different things. We try to have teaching assistants. So we not only have professional teachers who teach these classes, but we also try to have teaching assistants at each class. You just heard from Brian at Boolean Girl. We've hired a couple of young women from his program to be teaching assistants at a couple of the apartment communities where we're currently conducting classes. Other things that we've encountered, it's helpful. We have found in certain communities to have somebody who is bilingual. So we try to address that either through finding volunteers who are willing to be teaching assistants and who speak both English and Spanish. Sometimes the resident services manager at the apartment community is bilingual, and they're willing to spend the time, i.e., an hour and a half each week, twice a week, to serve as a teaching assistant and translate, the instructions being given in our classes. And the program is funded mostly, I want to give a shout out to the county. The program is funded mostly through a community development grant from Arlington County, which we've gotten for, I guess, each of the last 3 years. So we think we're doing something good, and we're going to continue to provide this program to apartment communities here in Arlington. And often we go back. I think Marquand mentioned, for example, Queens Court. At Queens Court, we've held 4 different computer training classes for resident seniors in that building. Next slide, please. There we go. So just this year, we decided to take on a new project through a funding again from the county. In this case, it's a digital equity grant to provide a traveling help desk. And the idea of the traveling help desk is we have a help desk staff person go again to apartment buildings or to senior centers. They're there once a week on the same day, the same time for 2 hours, and they're just there to be a help desk and have people, any adults, come to our help desk staff person and, get assistance with their device, whether it's a computer or even a smartphone. So we're doing that currently at 2 different Arlington senior centers and 3 different affordable housing communities. We did tell the county this was a new program, a pilot program, and I will be honest, we were sort of having mixed results. While our internet access for Arlington Seniors program has been very successful, and we'll continue to do that because we get a lot of interest and participation. We've had mixed interest in our help desk program. The senior centers, we're getting some customers, not so much in the apartment communities. That may be because our internet access program, you're getting a free laptop. With the help desk, you're just getting free advice, and maybe people just aren't interested in admitting that they have problems, or it's just maybe just not a big draw. But we'll continue to try to promote the program and see if our help desk can catch on the way the internet access program has. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the help desk program is funded with a digital equity grant from the county, and part of that grant money is also being used to pay for the cost of laptop computers for our internet access for Arlington Seniors program, because we have found, because of the Trump tariffs, the cost of laptops has gone up, and so we needed some additional financial resources to continue to provide free laptops in our internet access program. And we're going to try something else also with this digital equity grant, which is at the senior centers in Arlington, holding classes on using smartphone apps, particularly the translation app on smartphones, and also bringing to the senior centers tech topic lectures that we think might be of interest to seniors who come to the Arlington community centers. So we're a little organization. We continue to grow, and we're excited about what we're doing. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Howard. All right, next up, Lou August from WildTech.
Thank you so much. Howard, great presentation. Thank you all for joining the call. Howard, just some thoughts on getting the seniors to attend the training events. We have the same challenge in DC. We run the District of Columbia's senior program using technology, and we use a couple of services. One's a broadcast email service, another one's a broadcast text messaging service, which is particularly effective. And also we started raffling laptops off. So you don't need to give out one out to everybody, but just the opportunity to get one seems to drive attendance. Just a few thoughts. Anyway, we are the Wilderness Technology Alliance. We go by WildTech for short. We were founded in Seattle back in 1995. So we celebrated our 30th birthday this year. And we were founded based on the idea that outdoor leadership provides a lot of essential skills that are needed in the tech industry, like diligence, follow through, teamwork, trust, individual responsibility. And in Seattle, a lot of the IT entrepreneurs were also outdoors people, and I was one of them. And so decided to form a nonprofit 30 years ago to pioneer the idea of combining outdoor adventure with project-based learning and technology, focusing on youth, disadvantaged youth, to provide them a pathway to employment. And that was the birth of WildTech. We ran programs in Washington State for about 15 years, taking kids on Mount Rainier. That's the picture in the upper left. And really exciting stuff. They'd produce videos for the park. They produced part of the website for the park. They went back to their school and became leaders in their school, developed computer refurbishing programs in their school. At its height, we had 103 schools doing this in Washington State, where they went through the wilderness program and went back to their school to become leaders in technology, especially in computer refurbishing and providing computers to the community. We then expanded to Africa, and that's a picture on the right. And that's us summiting Mount Meru, a 15,000-foot peak. And we found it to be just as revolutionary there. And what's interesting is, as time goes on, I think that our world is increasingly embracing the issues of so much screen time by youth and needing alternate ways to build character and confidence and all the other great soft skills in the world. And So we really think that we're onto something, and we'd love to do more outdoors programs, but a lot of that is limited by the funding that we have available. What I will say, though, is over our 30 years of doing this, we've really boiled digital inclusion, digital equity down to 7 main factors, 6 of which I want to talk about now. So next slide. Thanks. First is device access. You're not going to join the internet revolution if you don't have a device. And that impedes a lot of people, especially low resource people, from joining the IT revolution. So we solve that in a couple of ways. In our program with the District of Columbia, they provided us about 2,500 iPads that we distributed to seniors. We're also a long-standing Mid-Atlantic computer refurbisher, so we refurbish and place thousands of computers, providing them to low-income individuals, schools, and nonprofits. And those computers are either free if we have grant funding for it, or we provide them at a very low cost recovery fee, currently at about $49. Next slide. So once you have a device, then you need to get internet. And this was less of a challenge years ago when the government helped fund it. It's more of a challenge now. We help guide people to obtain low-cost internet through digital navigator resources. We also previously had DC government covering that, but they're currently not doing that. And so we were looking forward to some federal monies that didn't materialize. And so internet access is still something that we need to coach people through acquiring. I'm excited about a lot of the housing developments are providing internet, already have internet, and it's so essential for digital inclusion. Next slide. So once you have the internet, you need to get trained. So over the course of years, we've developed many ways of training people. We love to train people in the outdoors, and that's why I'm sitting in my live background here. Whenever I can, I get outside, and we hold computer trainings outside. We found that to be synergistic both for the computer training and for the character and the engagement of the participants. When we can't do that, for the senior community especially, who often can't get outside and oftentimes are homebound, we've learned to provide introductory computer training completely over Zoom, from guiding people to, it begins at a telephone call where we guide them how to unwrap their computer box, how to plug it in, to basic navigation skills on the device, again, over the phone, ultimately transitioning them to Zoom, being able to open a Zoom meeting. And then we offer training programs 3 days a week on Zoom. And we have funding through the District of Columbia for seniors. So a lot of that programming is focused on seniors, from using their device. We have a library of about 200 senior service providers have made presentations on resources available to seniors. So that's another key part of it. And even entertainment. We have Jeopardy over Zoom. We give prizes out over Zoom. We've awarded laptops over Zoom. So training is really critical. Next slide. And then relevant uses. So you're not going to use a device unless you have a reason to use a device. And I think oftentimes this is overlooked. You can give people all the training that they could possibly consume, but if they don't have a reason to use it, that they're going to forget those skills. So we provide one of our biggest reasons, especially for seniors, is creating a channel where senior service providers can present their offerings directly to seniors. We provide this 2 days a week. The seniors call in on Zoom. They learn all about the resources from these providers. We encourage the providers to give out freebies during these Zoom calls to help drive the relevant uses. And we found that to be critical. Next slide. And then tech support. That's a bit obvious. Live tech support. When people encounter problems, they need to have a way to get through that. We have a phone number, we have email, and we have text messaging. And then the last slide. And this is something critical. We call it participant advancement. A lot of people stop using computers and then they don't reach out to you. They stop attending the trainings. You don't really know what happens. So in our program with the District of Columbia, we call on seniors who are not attending the trainings or somehow became disengaged. And 9 times out of 10, we find out that it's something simple that they forgot how to do. And for whatever reason, they didn't reach out for help. So us actually calling them has been one of our secret sauces. And ultimately, we would love to bring these 6 pillars to Arlington. We'd love to bring all of our programs to Arlington. We're continuously seeking funding and volunteers and computer donations that we could refurbish to provide so we could serve really a much greater audience in the DMV. Thank you all so much. And here's
Thank
a
you, Lou.
testimonial. Yep.
Thank you, thank you. Next up, and our last presenter is Holly Hartel from Arlington County.
Great, thank you all. Glad I have the opportunity to present. So I'm Holly Hartel. I'm the CIO for Arlington County, and I'm going to go over a little bit of what our role is within the county, and then also what our role has been within the digital equity space. So next slide. So our mission for the Department of Technology Services is focused on both internal and external customers. I mean, we want to make sure that we are doing our job to help make the services that are delivered to you as residents, to businesses, to people who come through Arlington in the easiest and best way possible. So it's focusing on excellent customer service. We're also, so as the technology department, we do a lot of work maintaining what exists today, but we're also keeping a lookout and trying to collaborate across the departments of new and emerging technology. So once again, our focus is how do we make things better for those who live, work, and play in Arlington. Next slide. So breaking this down, not necessarily by how we're organized, but how it really impacts you all as residents, people who work with the county, people who are visiting the county, people who are engaging in business with the county. So our job is to make sure that we have the resources and that they're accessible and appropriate. That starts from our infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit more about our fiber infrastructure, but it also relates to our making sure that we have a secure platform, both from a network perspective, but also from an application perspective. How are we making sure that the tools that the county employees are using are available and are giving them what they need? Safeguarding the electronic information. So wrapping around all of that is the role of making sure we're protecting the data. What are we doing to make sure that the data collected by the county, the data shared with the county is protected? We want to make sure we're thinking about all of this to provide information back. Are we collecting the data? Are we doing it in a way that is manageable and being able to share information to be able to provide that transparent aspect of government? And then the other piece is to make sure is that there is constantly new evolutions within technology. I had heard recently related to AI alone within just this year, there have been 1,000 new products created just related to AI. And so keeping up with that and making sure we are focusing on utilizing those, not for the new product, but making sure once again that we're making the interaction with government easier and honestly more enjoyable. So I want to take it back to the next slide, which is what we have done related to digital equity. So several years ago, I think it's almost 15 years ago now, we had a visionary set of people who are with the county in the past, and some of them are still with the county, thinking about how do we create a foundation to support delivering connectivity between our county buildings, schools, how do we support traffic signals, and how do we support public communications? We worked with different entities within the county, DES, our environmental services, public safety, as well as within DMF, Department of Management and Finance, to connect what resources do we have available to create this platform. We used several different funding sources to create a dark fiber network that now connects all of the county facilities in APS. Not only is it connecting those is also connecting all of our traffic lights, and then it's supporting public safety radio communications. It does so in a resilient and redundant fashion. So not only do we're not single threaded, we have multiple sources. So if there is a fiber break or if there is an issue, we're able to stay up and be able to provide the services for you all. We also were put in a piece to be able to think about how could we utilize this to spur economic growth for the county. So knowing that we had this platform in place, we started thinking about, well, what are some of the needs? Are there more things that we could do with it? So we started working with different departments, CPHD, Human Services, Parks, Public Safety, to listen and understand what some of the needs were. Through that, we were thinking about how do we use this platform to support affordable housing residents and the rest of the community. Through that, we tried several different pilots. One of them was working with Arlington Mill to utilize our dark fiber to provide internet to the residents of that building. There's a lot of complications, a lot of challenges that ended up resulting in slightly a different use of internet, but kind of helped to spur, and along with some of what others in the community have been seeing, that connectivity is a piece. But then also thinking there's often new technology solutions that come in. Are they real? Do they work? Can they be implemented in a way that is feasible and beneficial and sustainable for the community? While we're starting and getting some traction and working through some things, we had the pandemic happened. With that, we made what I called our pandemic pivot. All right, we need to do some things really quick. So within that time frame, we started thinking about where do we have connectivity, where can we support outdoor Wi-Fi hotspots. From that grew what we have right now is 28 outdoor hotspots at all of our libraries, a number of our community centers, and three of our fire stations and several other buildings. So those are all well marked, and if anybody wants to use them, they have them available. We also worked with both Comcast and APS to create a pathway to helping provide internet access for students. APS has they have a multi-pronged approach. So there might be students who have more of a need. There might be students who have other assistance that they have other assistant needs. How do we make sure that they're getting what they need? So that has been a successful and continues to be a successful collaboration with APS. We also use some of these new technology solutions. So I won't go into the words in detail, but there is a technology solution called CBRS that we were testing. Hey, what does it work to stand this up? What does it mean? Is it easy? And does it give people the technology that they need to provide the access? That was a little more complicated. We also worked with several anchor institutions. So providing the Arlington Free Clinic with connection to the Virginia Hospital Center to be able to make sure that their records were easily accessible. They had the bandwidth that they needed to be able to provide access and support low-income residents who use the free clinic. The other piece is that go back to the first Connect Arlington and thinking about economic development. We have leased a section of our conduit and dark fiber to JBG, which gave us a source of funding to support digital equity. That funding has evolved to, you just heard a number of different entities, and Jennifer talk about digital equity funding grant. So we've been able to support that effort and kind of expand. I think of it as a network of now, instead of sitting in a room with a small number of people, we have now created a network of it, sometimes 50 or more people talking and evaluating what is it that this community needs? What is it that we can potentially do? Where we are right now is continuing to focus on education. As we've heard several people talk about, some of it is related to education, and as new technology comes online, what is it that Arlington County could do? So we've had a number of conversations with the 55 plus group, with public libraries, talking about AI. What does artificial intelligence mean? Where is it going? What should we know? What should we do? What should we not do? Related to that, we have a fabulous group of cybersecurity experts within our county. How do we help the community understand and make sure that they are using the internet safely? There are lots of places to trip up and for people to get into trouble. How can we make sure people are aware that they can use it safely? And we're continuing to work and collaborate with Jennifer and with the Digital Equity Coalition to stay involved and continue to think about what does the future of the role for DTS mean for supporting the community. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Holly. All right, I think Courtney put in the chat, if you have any questions for these technology service providers, to drop them in the chat, and I'll hand it over to Courtney, who's gonna guide the Q&A if we have any.
Thanks, Jennifer. So yes, please do drop those into the chat if you have any questions for our providers, and we'll make sure we get those over to you. Or get those addressed for you, I should say. And just want to also take this time to thank all of our speakers for their time today and for sharing more about their work across this space. Our first panel, as well as all of our technology providers that we've heard from and the incredible work that they're doing. So thank you again for your time. All right, I will give it a, oh, there we go. We have one in the chat. Is anyone coordinating digital literacy training at the community centers and libraries? So pose that to the group, anyone that wants to jump in there.
Well, I'll jump in, Courtney. So Arlington County's 55 Plus program has been an important, partner with us, particularly since, we were organized to support 55 Plus. So, so these, at least the Arlington County community centers, senior centers, are, talking with one another and are aware of the importance of, digital equity and digital literacy. And so, the counties, again, particularly the 55 Plus program, but of course, obviously, the Digital Equity Coalition and Jennifer, et cetera, have been instrumental in promoting all this. But yeah, so at least I know from our experience at the senior centers that they're talking with one another, they're coordinating, they're trying not to to duplicate things. And they're sharing, best practices as to how to promote at least some of the things we've done at the senior centers, which is not only the help desk that I mentioned, but we've also held internet access for Arlington seniors program classes at the senior centers.
Wonderful. And Donna, did you want to jump in there as well?
Sure. So part of our commitment is to provide digital navigators, and some of those people will be placed at both the libraries and community centers. And we're still in the process of working with, it's wonderful, the Digital Equity Coalition, Howard, and I will also coordinate, and the other technology providers, but also the libraries and community centers in Arlington, other Arlington County staff are members of the coalition. So we'll all be coordinating. And a great question, because we'll try to get that message out about what that looks like to, from the non-coordination side. Just if you're checking into libraries and community centers, how would you find out when those services are provided?
Thank you both. Okay, our next question is from Antonio. He asks, how will tech providers be able to adjust considering not only the federal budget cuts or removals, but also the current government shutdown?
I've got a quick response on that. It may not be what the question was targeting, but in many ways, we've been a beneficiary of that. We are collecting USAID. USAID contacted us when they had the shutdown, and we're collecting employee laptops and redistributing them, not only in the district, but around the world. We distributed 20 of them last week to a job retraining program for DC residents, many of them impacted by the federal budget cuts. So it's actually helped our refurbishing program. And it's even helped our fundraising. So we now have 6 USAID volunteers volunteering for us in fundraising. It's certainly impacted the pool of funding because the government's no longer a viable resource for funding. So everybody's scrambling for the same pot. But we do have more human resources going after it. So we'll see how it all turns out. Thanks.
Mhm. And anyone else that wants to jump in on that question?
I just say for our part, we did not have any federal funding, so we didn't lose any federal funding. So that was a blessing in disguise. And I would agree with Lou that we have received more volunteers. Unfortunately, those federal workers who are out of work, we feel bad for them, but they are coming to us and helping volunteer and also participating in some of our classes because some of them need upskilling as well.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful to hear that. And Brian, feel free to add.
Yeah, I would just echo what Lou said about the competition for funds. I mean, we're finding we don't get any federal grants, but what we're finding is the organizations that used to get federal grants are now kind of coming down the food chain and pursuing small grants that used to fund organizations like ours. And it's been a really tough year.
Yeah, yeah, to say the least, to say the
Yeah.
least. Alrighty, we have a question from Catherine as well on how can any or all of these resources help older adults in senior housing facilities who no longer drive? And she lists the Jefferson as an example there.
Well, I guess I can jump in on this one too. So we offer a lot of virtual programming currently to DC seniors because it's funded by the District of Columbia. We plan to talk to them because it's no incremental cost for us to expand the viewership to people in Arlington County, and we will actively pursue that with the district. So we are providing training over Zoom. We have specialists who are able to call people no matter where they live. And when we built this senior program on homebound seniors who are literally unable to get out of their beds. So we have the skills and resources to do it. We just need to make sure that we're allowed to expand it at this point. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just add in, as I said in my presentation, our internet access for Arlington Seniors Program, a key component is we go to where the low income seniors live because we recognized pretty early on that transportation was going to be a problem if we were going to hold our classes in some central location. So going to the apartment buildings, around the county has, been critical to our success because the seniors can then just come downstairs to the community room and
Yeah.
bring their new laptops with them and attend our classes for 6 weeks.
And thank you, Howard. And Barbara also adds in the chat that AARP's Senior Planet program is also useful for anyone interested in exploring that as well. And Donna, feel free to jump in too.
Sure. I was just going to say for seniors and again, any adults over 18, we primarily teach online and we do provide, I think some other people mentioned that too, the both the device and the assistance of how to get online. But once folks join online, we actually, before COVID, we had about 200 people a year that we serve, and now we're up to about 1,000 people a year, not all in Arlington, but regionally. And we get people not only homebound seniors, but also more people with disabilities, more people with young children, people who can't afford gas to travel or park. So it's really expanded our reach. And then for the Courcellate program, where we do have some in-person sessions, we do have a transportation voucher. Again, that doesn't help someone who's homebound, but it does help people who are homebound due to financial reasons.
Thank you for that, Donna. And last question in the chat here. This is for Melanie and Marquand. And this comes from Myra. She'd like to know if they're sharing these experiences and initiatives among housing developers. She says spreading the word within housing developers would be worthwhile to expand the impact to bridge the digital gap. So more of a comment, but wanted to share that with both of you.
Great point. Thank you.
Agreed. Alrighty. Well, I will, if there are no other questions, I don't see any others. I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer to wrap us up. And thank you again to all of our speakers.
Yes, just echoing that. Thank you all. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Housing And. We, in this region, we actually don't have a regional convener for digital equity like we have in several, like we have several of them in the affordable housing industry. So I'm really grateful for Housing And, who partnered with us, for Courtney and Tiana for helping so much, provided so much value add to this event. Also thanks to Elise Cleva. She's on our communications team in Arlington County, and she did a lot of work behind the scenes for this event, leading up to it and during this event. Just so you all know, the meeting was recorded, and it's going to be available on both the county's website as well as Housing And's website. And we're also going to share the recording as well as all the PowerPoint slides with everyone who registered for the event. So again, thank you for attending. It was a great opportunity for me to share the work that we've been doing in Arlington, but also to spotlight several organizations who are taking on leadership roles here and doing a lot of excellent work in this space with more on the horizon. So thank you so much to our panelists and our presenters for sharing your work and your insights. I hope that all of you in the audience hope that you all leave with a better understanding of some of the solutions, some of the challenges, some of our lessons learned, what works, what might not, and what we could do a better job of in the future, and possibly even identify some new partnerships for your work in the future. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a nice long weekend. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
if I can just add one more item to close us out, everyone will receive a survey following this event. So we ask that you please do take a few seconds to complete that survey. That allows us to really make sure that we're improving upon all of our programming, and would love to hear your thoughts and perspectives. So thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.